everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host kushalmehra. All right, so the World T20 Men's Cricket World Cup has ended. I had watched a total 3 hours of it, but I'm still going to review it. I don't know where Navneet is. We are waiting for Navneet to come. We have started. आएगा उसको डाल देंगे podcast में अंदर. But I have to begin with Aadit with me. Aadit, how are you?
Good, Kushal. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, first of all, can we say they came, they won 7 out of 8 tosses, and that's why they won
Yes.
the World Cup?
Yes. Before your comment thing goes ballistic, me wearing yellow has nothing to do with Australia winning the T20. Let me clarify. ये पहले हो चुका है. मैं इतना नहीं सोचता before I pick out what I'm going to wear on the podcast. But yeah, no. Essentially, this was a World Cup heavily determined on tosses. It's unbelievable how much tosses played a crucial role in this. If you do like analysis, I think except for a few minnows here and there and a few games that were close to some extent because of bad batting of the teams batting second in cases, it was a one way shop. And ultimately what this led to was the teams that were chasing, it gave them the confidence कि कुछ भी होगा हम तो जीत ही जाएंगे. So
Yep.
I think, and I think this was almost unfair because किसी ने actually एक बहुत interesting comment दिया था. I was going through a lot of comment forums and things like that. कि maybe what the toss should determine is not what the captain will ask, bat or ball. आपको ये करना चाहिए. If you win the toss, you bat. If you lose the toss, you bowl. Rather than asking the person whether you bat or bowl, because that's the true 50-50 probability.
Yeah, but let's talk about this. So let's divide this whole toss factor. By the way, Navneet just messaged me. He's joining us. So
Yeah.
because I wanted to hear his views also on this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's divide this toss factor into three parts. One is obviously the pitch. Two is the place where they're playing.
Yeah.
Do you think they selected the right country to host something which is the future of cricket, which is T20 cricket?
I don't think so. I don't think this was the right place to be playing. Maybe Muscat was where the qualifiers happened. Actually, that the pitch, the dew wasn't as much of a factor as it was in Dubai. But you can say that they were saying that in the final, the dew wasn't as much of a factor as it was in the league games, which was very interesting. I don't know what was why that was the case, but maybe they had they just didn't get enough humidity. I don't know, but no, this was not. And I think cricket needs to make sure of three things: first, the time zone issues; second, the place where the tournaments are being held; and third, you have to compromise commerce in some cases to make sure that the right things are done. And I'll come to three of those issues. I'll expand on why I said all three. First is obviously the time zone, because cricket is one sport where actually किसी को कभी पता ही नहीं है वर्ल्ड कप की फाइनल कितने बजे कब होगी. It's a bit of a lottery, right? And then you had this bizarre situation where you have the Caribbean Premier League where the finals don't happen in the night, because in the night it is midnight in India or 3 a.m. So बेचारे पूरी टूर्नामेंट खेलते हैं, day night games, night games, but finals or qualifiers सुबह 10 बजे होती है. I mean, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, how do you expect local crowds to show up, right? So that is the first thing. So you have to compromise on that. Second is what I was saying, where you have it. It is incumbent on them to ensure that crowds do show up, incentivize crowds showing up, because if you don't have people showing up for the matches, atmosphere kaise banega? And now spectators are being allowed in every single match. I mean, I watch American sports here. Every American sport game, including college football, is packed to the limit. Like there is 100. Now, one may argue कि जो यहाँ हो रहा है वो ज़्यादा careless है कि why are you packing up 100,000 people in stadiums when you're not sure whether they're vaccinated or masks and so forth. But that's a separate debate. The bottom line is the atmosphere is back in the sporting stadium. Why should that not be the case in cricket? And the third and the final thing is about the scheduling part of it. Simon Dool hinted this on Crick Buzz because कोई Indian commentator तो बोल नहीं सकता, तो बेचारे Simon Dool ने बोला, तो I'm glad he did, कि the scheduling of India's matches and all other matches were like done consultations with the broadcaster. So you had this bizarre situation where India was playing Pakistan, which I agree would be the first match, and the second match India was playing New Zealand, and then we were playing Namibia, Scotland, and Afghanistan. Ideally, India versus New Zealand would have determined who went to the semi-finals, and that should have been the last match. That should have either been played on the last weekend or the last day on Monday. But they were worried about Diwali and Indian viewership and all that nonsense. You cannot do this to the team. Like अगर वो लोग इतनी बड़ी high intensity match पाकिस्तान के सामने हारे हैं, first of all you can't give them an 8-day break, because then ultimately people don't have anything to talk about, so they keep talking about the same match again and again. It mentally affects the players. You need to give, like, you need to balance it out a little bit. So those three things, they have to get it together, and the ICC has to step in, because this is ridiculous. The scheduling this tournament was ridiculous.
Okay, so Navneet, just to come to you also on this one. So my question to Adit was Dubai the right venue to host a premier tournament like a World Cup, a T20 World Cup? And secondly, we will talk about the teams and how they perform later on. But I started with this comment, which where I said they won 8 tosses, 7 out of 8 tosses, and they won the World Cup. So in the case where the toss was such an important factor, Navneet. By the way, you're muted, Navneet, so you'll have to unmute yourself. How much of a factor do you think was the venue and the toss, and should they have then done something like this?
I think, I mean, I don't have a problem with with Dubai being the venue, but as you rightly said, that the outcome of the match hinged heavily on the toss. I think they should have prepared pitches which which are toss neutral, and in a season like this, Dubai is not the right venue as well, because perhaps in this season dew starts coming, and then the team which bowls which bowls in the second half invariably finds it hard to grip the ball. So I think, I think perhaps, I mean, Dubai as a venue is not that big a problem. They should take the season in consideration, like it is, and in the last decade, I used to often bang my head against the wall that why do these people schedule cricket matches in Sri Lanka during July? Sri Lanka is a beautiful destination to play cricket, but आप जुलाई अगस्त में श्रीलंका में मैचेस कराओगे, and most of them used to get washed out. So I think दुबई का जो venue है, I mean, एटलीस्ट जो हमने इस टूर्नामेंट में देखा है, आई एम नॉट श्योर वेदर दुबई वाज द राइट वेन्यू फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर सीजन व्हेन द ड्यू स्टार्ट्स when the dew starts coming into play, and not just coming into play, it heavily affects the outcome of the match. Second question you asked, second question was about scheduling, and I completely agree with Adit that the scheduling of this tournament was absolutely abysmal. I mean, India played their first match against Pakistan, and the next match was after 7 days. It was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I have not seen a worse scheduling of a premier tournament. Perhaps 2007 World Cup, but it got to do more with the scheduling than so many matches in the Super 8 league. But
Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree with Adit that
And
the
think about
scheduling
this:
of this tournament was absolutely abysmal.
if we truly want cricket to be a global sport, like at a bigger scale at which FIFA is played or something like that, you cannot have these strange things where India's matches only happen on weekends. No, people will watch it on
True.
weekdays also when they happen. And if you get, and ICC has to put its foot down कि भाई अगर मुझे $1-2 million कम मिलेंगे weekend के prime time slot में, so be it. Because it's becoming strange. Like I am sort of on the side of BCCI in what the work it's done for Indian cricket. I have a lot of questions with it too, which I've
Hmm.
raised. But quite frankly, this is just getting crazy. Where in चलो इंडिया का इन्फ्लुएंस है थोड़ा in terms of many other things I understand in terms of commercial interests and things like that, but you cannot have the broadcaster deciding when India will play matches. That's just
I
strange.
completely And I completely agree. And just to add the point regarding the toss, Aaron Finch has admitted in his post-match press conference that we were lucky to win 6 tosses out of 7, And when they didn't, and when they didn't win the toss against England, we saw what happened to them. England completely steamrolled them, and Aaron Finch was gracious enough, or
Yeah.
was candid enough to admit the significance of the toss. He said that we were lucky that we won the toss in both the crucial games and throughout the tournament. I think out of 7 games, Aaron Finch won six tosses.
Mhm.
So basically मतलब ये टूर्नामेंट की नेट कंक्लूजन ये है कि एरन फिंच इज द ग्रेटेस्ट कैप्टन बिकॉज ही वन ऑल द टॉसेस एंड विराट कोहली तो नश्तर है बहुत बड़ा, वो कभी टॉस जीतता ही नहीं है.
No, there is another thing also. Why were the games not starting at 7 p.m. local time? Because 7 p.m. लोकल टाइम स्टार्ट कर दे तो जो फर्स्ट आवर में जो एडवांटेज मिलता था, राइट, 7 बजे से ही ड्यू, 7 साढ़े 7 से ड्यू शुरू होता था. देन बोथ द इनिंग्स वुड हैव बीन प्लेड इन ड्यू, राइट. देन द टॉस वुड हैव बीन आउट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. और 8 o'clock, बट नहीं, स्टार्ट तो हमें तभी कर रहे हैं जब आईपीएल स्टार्ट होती थी इंडिया में.
So I actually did not know about these things
हाँ,
because that's how little I follow T20 cricket.
No, because if you notice the IPL, I mean, for Indian viewers, nothing changed. हम लोग आईपीएल भी 8 बजे आईएसटी को देखते थे. वर्ल्ड टी20 हफ्ते बाद 8 बजे आईएसटी को ही शुरू हो जाता. 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. You could have had the afternoon games at keep them at 4, and the evening games start them at 9 or 9:30 or 10. But then you are losing out on the prime time. You know, there was a कभी कभी लोग पूछते हैं कि why are we so romantic about cricket in the 90s? Because एक रोमांस ये भी था कि रात को 4 बजे तक देख के we used to watch वेस्ट इंडीज के क्रिकेट मैचेस जो रात को 9 बजे शुरू होती थी और सुबह 4 बजे तक चलती थी. We used to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the Australian matches and stuff. Right now, I don't think we have to wake up to watch these test matches. But when it comes to T20 one dayers and things like that, it's fed to us on a plate, so we don't have to inconvenience ourselves to watch those games. So we don't have the same sort of effort on our side to watch a match that. And there was a bit of cricket romanticism associated with that too.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's get into the tournament itself. So
after we are done with our rant, yes,
yeah.
go
So now
ahead.
let's get into the tournament. Obviously,
Yeah.
kudos to Australia. Fantastic, especially.
Mhm.
I think when it came to the final, I was pretty sure Australia was going to win. And I'll give you my reasons. Aussies have a big match temperament like no other team does. They
Agreed.
know how to win big matches. It
Absolutely.
is a culture. It is a cultural thing. They are taught how to handle pressure. They are taught how to think that no matter what, I'm going to win. So whether it was the way they handled the Pakistan match, I mean, Matthew Wade, I saw his 3 6s. The way he hit those 3 6s, that is a team and a culture. It shows Aussie culture also. Aussie culture is all about, domination and bravado. And you can call them whatever you want to. And they do cross the line many times. I'm not going to stand up and, koi, matlab, aisa nahi hai for Australia. But the point is that if it came to the semi-finals, I'm not surprised Australia won the World Cup because they just have that thing in them where they know how to go to the next line. But if I was to say before the World Cup, I remember you and I, all three of us were chatting in the WhatsApp group, and all three of us were of the conclusion that England's going to win the World Cup. I remember this clearly. Adit, तूने बोला था, मैंने बोला हाँ, it seems England जीतेगी, and Navneet was also like, हाँ, England ही लग रही है जीतते हुए.
Yeah.
So, do you think if the toss was not the factor, England, who was the best team in the World Cup is my question to both of you.
So
Australia won, but who was the best team?
Okay, I'll take that. I think first things, Australia ke liye, when they won the semi-final against Pakistan, I had no doubt in my mind that they are going to win the final.
Yep.
They looked so hungry, and honestly, this was Pakistan's World Cup to lose because, to be honest, they had the best combination. Because if you look at their fast bowling, their spinning, right? Shadab Khan was, along with Adam Zampa, they were the two best spinners in there. But sort of they had that strange combination working for them. The problem with England and Pakistan were they did not look as hungry as Australia did in the qualifying stages. It's just like what you said. They upped their ante just at the right time. Okay, Australia is the only team in the tournament where both the openers did not give them a consistently huge opening stand. बाकी अब देख लो, बाबर और मोहम्मद रिजवान थे पाकिस्तान के लिए. You had in New Zealand Guptill and Daryl Mitchell or Kane Williamson. You had in England Joss Butler, doing his own thing. I mean, and even to some extent Bairstow. But in Australia, Aaron Finch had a very so-so tournament. David Warner had 3 horrendous innings, except for that one innings with Sri Lanka where Kushal Pereira dropped the easiest catch he'll ever get in his cricketing career and sort of gifted him that. Only in the last 3 games Warner stood up. But Australia was battle tested. Its middle order had been tested and ready. And they somehow mastered the art of bowling during over 6 to 14.
But yeah, do you really think Australia was the best team in the World Cup? Come on, यार. तेको नहीं लगता England थी?
The best team.
See,
Australia की semi-finals और finals को हटा दे, उसके तक उस moment
Kushal,
तक, because after that
I'll answer this.
luck of the draw.
Kushal, so in a big tournament, especially a World Cup, be it a 50-over World Cup or a T20 World Cup, it is about peaking at the right time. If I go by your logic, then India was the best team in 2019 World Cup. India was the best team in 2017 Champions Trophy because they won. Because in Champions Trophy 2017, they won all the league matches and lost in the final. In 2019 World Cup, they dominated the league stages like no one else. In 2015 World Cup as well. In 2015 World Cup, India reached semi-final without dropping a match. So, I mean, if I go by your theory, I mean, I'm not saying that your theory is wrong. That yes, that India was the strongest team in 2015 World Cup, in 2017 Champions Trophy, in 2019 World Cup. But in big tournaments, it is about peaking at the right time. And I had no doubt in my mind that New Zealand will beat Pakistan in semi-final because I felt that Pakistan has peaked too early.
Pakistan hadn't had a typical cliched LOL moment in the entire World Cup, and Pakistan had about 6 in the semi-final.
Yeah, but let's talk about Team Pakistan also, because most of our time is going to be spent on talking about Team India. As Navneet is frozen, Navneet will come back. So let's talk about Team Pakistan. Look, I don't want to get into how they thrashed India. ठीक है, they thrashed India. It was going to happen. The law of averages was going to catch up to us eventually in the end. So I'm not really, kind of surprised about that. But what did you make of Team Pakistan in this entire tournament, especially that guy Rizwan?
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, Mohammad Rizwan was absolutely brilliant for Pakistan, given that he was in the ICU a couple of days before the semi-final, and what he did was brilliant. It was a very un-Pakistan team. The reason I say it was a very un-Pakistan team was it was playing like a team. It almost seemed like, and I'm just saying it from what I've seen and read about it, that the big egos of players were put aside, because Pakistan में हमेशा ये problem होती है जो अभी I hope India में set ना हो जाए, but India में नहीं होती थी और पाकिस्तान में 90s और 2000s में होती थी, that Wasim Akram, Waqar Younis, Saklan, Saeed Anwar, Amir Sohail, they all had their own egos, and then you had Salim Malik doing his own thing, right? For that, refer to our previous podcast where we talked about the exploits of Salim Malik on Kushal's channel. Sorry, I had to put in the plug for that. But quite frankly, that was the problem. And this time, under Babar Azam, I don't think even Shoaib Malik and Mohammad Hafiz, who are in their 40s, by the way, 40s, I mean, unreal. They had 2 players in the 40s.
मोहम्मद हफीज तो प्रॉपर 40-year-old है ना. शोएब मलिक भी 40 साल का हो गया.
हाँ, शोएब मलिक भी है. I think Shoaib Malik is 41 and Mohammad Hafiz is 43.
Wow.
So it is unbelievable. And Shoaib Malik, I think, had one of the fastest 50s in the tournament.
Yep.
So it's sorry, Shoaib Malik is 39. He'll turn 40 in 3 months. But still, he's 39, right? So they were playing like a team. They were very cohesive. So I think that is what made them click. But Navneet was right in saying that Pakistan did peak too early, and they had their dropped catches. Their fielding took a big back seat, and it just seemed like after Hassan Ali, and I don't want to blame him, right? Because kisi se bhi wo drop but after that drop happened, it's almost like everyone was knew कि भाई Australia अब तो पेलेगा. Now that now Wade finished it off in three sixes was adding salt to the injury. But
No, but let me add. अरे यार इतना क्या हसन अली के पीछे पड़ गए यार लोग? हसन अली ने क्या कोई गुनाह कर दिया? क्या किया उस बेचारे ने? So I just want to ask, why not go after Shaheen Shah Afridi for giving 3 sixes in a row?
I
But
absolutely
why is
agree.
it? अरे what the hell? उसने 3 छक्के दिए यार, उसने तो एक कैच ड्रॉप किया.
कुशाल शाहिद अफरीदी बहुत रेयरली समझदारी की और सेंसिबल बात बोलता है. उसने भी यही बात बोली that instead of blaming Hasan Ali, we should ask questions of Shaheen Shah. That why and how could he concede 3 sixes on the trot? That too to Matthew Wade. I completely agree. I mean, it is.
इसमें दो चीजें हैं. एक तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू ब्लेम द ब्रॉडकास्टर्स पार्टली फॉर इट आल्सो बिकॉज दे केप्ट फोकसिंग ऑन हसन अलीज ड्रॉप. आ जाता है तो और वो जब लोगों की खुन्नस होती है ना तो दे जस्ट सॉर्ट ऑफ. और एक ही क्रिकेट में नया बकवास शुरू किया है. व्हेनेवर समवन ड्रॉप्स and someone is playing well, they'll put it on the scoreboard. XYZ dropped on so and so. No, dropped on so and so by XYZ and by ABC. अरे यार, you know, ठीक है, you mention it once or twice, but the commentators don't need to keep harping on again and again and again. So that was the sad part. And I think दूसरा ये भी है कि he was an easy target, right? We've seen on Twitter like him being targeted because of his faith, because on his marriage. I mean, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. I don't even think Shaheen Shah should be targeted or Hasan Ali. Yeah, it's a game. Khatam karo, move on. Ask questions of them, of their selection policies, their play, but don't target them. That same applies to India, same applies to Pakistan.
Okay, so now let's Navneet, I want to come to you. Now let's start with Team India and its campaign, and I'll start with this comment made by Hitarth. He says India messed up everything since the fourth test in England. They left early for IPL, got exhausted, messed up the World Cup, and now are resting during New Zealand tests. So, okay, let's get to the team that we all care about. Navneet, what's your thought on the campaign of Team India in the T20 World Cup?
See, in the first two matches against Pakistan and New Zealand, India looked very unusually jaded and they were devoid of passion and vigor and energy, which is a very unusual thing. I mean, in last 3 years under Virat Kohli's captaincy, whether they win or lose, you can never accuse India of being devoid of passion or being devoid of vigor and vim. This is exactly what it seemed. In the match against Pakistan, in the first 15 minutes, it was very clear to me that the body language of Pakistani players was much better. I mean, of course, they got the wicket of Rohit Sharma, which would have helped. But throughout the match, India completely looked clueless and absolutely rudderless. मतलब वो जो पैशन है टीम में, जो एक किलर इंस्टिंक्ट है, the intent to win was very conspicuous by absence. Pakistan, on the other hand, looked very focused and determined to break the jinx. So I think, the reason for Indian team looking jaded can be attributed to the IPL, because they were just coming off IPL. Though it can't be an excuse. So I think that is the most important thing which stood out for me. That Indian team looked very rusty and looked completely devoid of vigor. That is one thing that stood out for me. See, we can question the selection. कि पहले टेस्ट में आपने क्या the first match against Pakistan, why did you play Hardik Pandya? You could have, when he was not apparently fully fit, or आपने and why did you leave Ishan Kishan out? Ishan Kishan has been in red hot sizzling form. Why was he left out? We can talk about selection policy. And we should also take into consideration the toss. As I said, it can't be an alibi, it can't be an excuse, but the fact is India lost the test. India lost the toss in both the crucial matches, and that really played its part. But even otherwise on the field, India looked completely rusty. But having said all this, Kushal, I want to say that just because India lost two matches, it doesn't make India a bad team or even a mediocre team. This team is still pretty good. Yes, India needs to make few changes in T20s. I think they are little especially in their batting, especially जो India के top three हैं, they are terrific in ODIs, but in T20s I feel sometimes they take bit too much but they take too many balls to get going. So that is one thing. I mean, there are few issues to concern, and these are not new issues. But it's tournament. Just because India lost a couple of matches and Pakistan qualified for the semi-final, we should not harbor this thought that Pakistan is a better team than Team India. Yes, Pakistan is a very good, very competitive T20 team, but so is India. Yes, India needs to look into few areas, but overall, as I said, India is still a good team. Yes, they lost two matches. They look jaded. They look instinct, which is usually visible under the Virat Kohli captaincy.
Yeah, Adit, what did you make of Team India? I'll just give you my thoughts on this. Look, I think the toss was the biggest factor in my view, Adit. I think Navneet is right there. I think toss nahi hota na to maybe things would have been different. And and we'll have a separate discussion maybe afterwards on bubble fatigue also, because I want to talk about अभी 3 दिन में तो न्यूजीलैंड शुरू हो रहा है, 3 भी नहीं 2 दिन में न्यूजीलैंड शुरू हो रहा है. So we'll have to talk about that, but in the latter half. But honestly, this is a serious issue. अगर याद होगा 6 महीने पहले जब पॉडकास्ट हुई थी पीक कोविड के टाइम पे, तब भी मैंने बोला था ये बबल पागल कर देगी प्लेयर्स को, एंड वी आर प्लेइंग विद द मेंटल हेल्थ ऑफ प्लेयर्स, एंड आई फील बैड फॉर द प्लेयर्स, दिस होल ब्लडी बबल थिंग टू स्टॉप. बट डू यू थिंक you leave that kneel aside and the whole, silly woke signaling of Team India aside, how much of the anger is actually because of that kneeling from a section of a crowd and losing to Pakistan? Because obviously we can't lose to Pakistan ना, नहीं तो सब लोगों को टट्टी नहीं आती 100 दिन के लिए अगर पाकिस्तान से हार जाती है इंडिया तो, because we are a tribal society whether we like it or not, और पाकिस्तान हमसे भी 2 कदम आगे है उसमें.
हाँ मतलब
So जो
पाकिस्तान
है
की
वो है.
सबसे वाली बात बोलूंगा मैं. टू yesterday apparently I heard कि मेरे घर के आसपास शुगर एंड ह्यूस्टन के आसपास they were doing some victory parade, a couple of local folks, and I'm like काहे की victory, सेमीफाइनल में हारने की, and I think they thought that अब तो जीत ही गए वर्ल्ड कप और उसके ऊपर विक्ट्री परेड अनाउंस कर दी. I mean, it was that ridiculous. So I mean,
तो उनका नंबर लेके जाके उनको पर्सनली कॉल करके
हाँ, I was like, जीत गए कहाँ जीत गए. So I mean, it's but no, okay. To your point, right? There are 2 points. Yes, toss is important. Toss was very important, but there is really no justification for why we only ended up with 110 against New Zealand, right? That there is no justification, because there were teams who lost the toss and they still got at least more than 140, 150. We ourselves got more than 115 against Pakistan, and against Afghanistan, if you can get around 200, right? After batting first, I forget, was it? Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying in New Zealand and Afghanistan attack is the same, but if you thought that this game was as much as a quarterfinal, shouldn't you have gone just all hell for leather and started smashing everything in the first 5-6 overs? India's biggest problem was, and I tweeted that yesterday, that Virat Kohli, for the sake of Team India, has to drop to number 4. The first thing is, Virat Kohli is not the Kohli of 2016. He would cream the bowling attacks. He just does not. Uski game badal gayi hai. He's crossed 30. Now he doesn't have the same reflexes that he did in terms of shot, and for good reason. I think we need Kohli to play the innings that he does right now, but he can do that at number 4, like Steve Smith does it for Australia.
Good point.
The reason why Australia was successful also was because Mitchell Marsh was at number 3. You cannot have Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, and Virat Kohli who are control C, control V of each other at 1, 2, and 3. The reason why Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, and Virat Kohli are successful in the IPL, because let's look at who their partners are. Rohit Sharma's partner, Quinton de Kock. KL Rahul's partner, Mayank Agarwal. Virat Kohli's opening partner, whenever he chooses to open, is either Padikkal or someone like that. But then Bangalore mein problem ye bhi hai ki 3, 4, 5, 6 are all hitters, right? So you only in Team India you have that, where you have the sort of anchormen of 1, 2, and 3 there. So what we were doing is we were getting to 30 for 0 or 30 for 1 in 5 overs, 38 for 2, 1 in first match mein 31 for 3 ho gaye the 6 overs mein. You cannot have that. If you are going to lose 2 or 3 wickets, you need to be 48 for 2, 50 for 2 in 6 overs, because then the wicket got easy. So I just did not find enough risk taking being done in the first 6 7 overs. And here is the biggest problem: Indian commentators do not question Kohli. Not one commentator was asking, why is Kohli sticking to Hardik Pandya in the team? Why is Ashwin not being played in the first 2 matches? Against Pakistan, you play your big match bowlers. I don't care if you. I gave this as an example. अब मुझे याद नहीं है.
मिस्ट्री बॉलर था वो, मिस्ट्री बॉलर.
हाँ, मतलब पता नहीं किसकी मिस्ट्री थी ये, right? In 2003 World Cup, it was no secret that Ganguly was favoring Harbhajan Singh to be playing in the one-dayers over Anil Kumble. But the Pakistan match comes in 2003, and guess who comes back into the team? Anil Kumble. Because I'm not saying Harbhajan is not a big match player, but there is a thing that is called playing Pakistan, and you need people who have had some experience, who are not overall. I felt bad for Varun Chakravarti. That guy looked clueless by the end of T20, because उसको लगा कि IPL में जो success मिला वही मुझे World T20 में मिलेगा, and he was trying his heart out, but just wasn't happening.
Okay, then I'll come to you, and then maybe even Navneet can add this, because we have to talk about two aspects now. First, we'll talk about Virat Kohli, the captain. And let us divide this: white ball cricket and red ball cricket. Virat Kohli, the white ball cricket captain. We will not talk about red ball cricket now. We may talk about red ball cricket when we discuss the upcoming New Zealand tour to India. तब red ball captaincy की बात करेंगे. मगर as a white ball captain, what do you make of Virat Kohli? तो उसकी टॉस जीतने को सब भूल जा. टॉस तो यार ठीक है, अभी उसको क्या कर सकते हैं, बेचारा टॉस हारता रहता है. मगर do you think he's a good white ball captain, Virat? And do you think, also second question to both of you is, do you think by making him the captain, we are actually losing out on Virat Kohli, the white ball batsman?
Oh, do you want me to go first or Navneet?
Yeah, you go first, and then Navneet can come in automatically.
Absolutely. I'll take your second question first. We are losing the white ball batsman, no doubt about it. It's the classic case of Virat Kohli has the same level of intensity as Sachin did, in terms of he wants to give its best as a captain too, right? And it's somehow bogging down as a batsman. Sachin Tendulkar, we saw the same thing. If you see Sachin Tendulkar as the captain between 1997 and 2000, and as the batsman, there were issues, right? He was not being as productive as probably he was under other captains. As a captain, Virat Kohli, I think I would rate him above average, slightly below Ganguly and Dhoni, because Ganguly and Dhoni I think we played to our potential in white ball cricket. We did not have the squad that Kohli has right now, but we played, but it was more talented than the squad we had under Ganguly. So we hit that 100, sometimes we even played above our potential, 105% mark. With Ganguly, there was a time consistently where we played either below potential or above potential. Our squad was like Ganguly, deeply passionate. Like, 250 का target अगर करना होगा तो we'll get 54 all out, like we did in Sharjah against Sri Lanka. And then 2 years later, we'll go down to England and chase down 326. With 8 of the 10, 12 members, 8 of the 11 members being repeated from the same team, right? So this was Ganguly. You had Javagal Srinath, who was tired and retired, and Saurav Ganguly brings him back 6 months out of retirement, 6 months before the World Cup in New Zealand. And literally on the hands of Srinath and Tendulkar is how we got into the final of the 2003 World Cup. It is. Can you ever imagine in a situation like this, where you have a workhorse at the fading edge of his career, almost retired, being brought back into a team and just bowls like an absolute charm for the 1 year that he plays?
Yeah, I agree. That's interesting. But okay, Navneet, what do you make of Kohli, the captain? I want to talk, because I will spend time on Ravi Shastri, but first let's talk about Kohli.
See, as a white ball captain, Kohli has been just about decent. Kohli has got a great team. जिसमें he has had a lot of match winners, और कोहली का ODI record भी काफी अच्छा है. But my problem with Kohli's captaincy is that sometimes, I mean, of course, the most glaring one is his inability to win an ICC tournament, चाहे वो Champions Trophy हो World Cup ho, I mean, Virat Kohli has just not been able to just make the cut where his team can go, where his team can go on and win the a big tournament. So I think that has been one of the very glaring, I won't say error, but a very glaring omission uh, in his captaincy.
True.
He has not won a big tournament in by if you but if you look at the Kohli's captaincy record in bilateral ODI series, it has been terrific. I think Kohli's win ratio in ODIs is even better than Saurav Ganguly, and I think it's even better than MS Dhoni as well. Kohli's ODI record, if you look, I'm not completely sure, but by instinct I'm saying कि कोहली का जो विन परसेंटेज है ओडीआईज में it is better than Saurav Ganguly and MS Dhoni. But that has got to do with the fact that the team under Virat Kohli has been very, very, very strong, and the standard of other teams, especially Sri Lanka and Pakistan, have gone down drastically since 2012. Sri Lanka का तो बहुत ही बुरा level गया. Even South Africa, even the standard of South Africa has gone drastically. So Kohli captained the Indian side in the ODIs when the other prominent teams, these teams are not like Zimbabwe or Bangladesh. These are very prominent teams. South Africa, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Their standards plummeted drastically, and the team which Kohli had has had a very good players, a lot of match winners. From Rohit Sharma to Shikhar Dhawan, Jasprit Bumrah, and so many others. So, but yeah, I mean, Kohli has so tactically, I don't think Kohli has left a mark on me in the white ball cricket. But his ODI record is stellar. But that is to do with the fact that he's a good team, and yeah, I mean the there'll always be a glaring omission in his white ball career as a captain, that he has not won a single ICC tournament. MS Dhoni, on the other hand, won the T20 World Cup as well and the 50 over World Cup as well.
And
Yeah.
So,
Champions
So
so
Trophy.
that is one thing. Kohli as a red ball captain is a different beast. I absolutely love Kohli, the red ball. I mean, in test matches, I mean, I rate Kohli much higher than MS Dhoni in test matches. The way he has rebuilt the team, the way he put his weight behind the fast bowlers, और जिस तरह से फास्ट बॉलिंग का एक कल्चर कल्टीवेट किया. आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि कोहली, the credit goes to Kohli alone. Ravi Shastri, Bharat Arun, and there are so many other people at the grassroots level which have contributed to India becoming a heaven for fast bowlers. But the point is, in test matches, Kohli realized that Kohli always wanted to stand out by winning overseas. MS Dhoni का ये है, MS Dhoni का overseas record as a captain was very poor in test matches. So I think there was a deep desire within Kohli to win test series overseas, and to win tests overseas you need a battery of pacers, and Kohli really worked hard in tandem with Ravi Shastri to to cultivate that fast bowling ecosystem within the country, and he really supported players like Ishan Sharma, Mohammad Shami, Jasprit Bumrah. Jasprit Bumrah, I remember when he made his test debut in 2018, Michael Holding completely wrote him off that this guy can't succeed in test matches. But Jasprit Bumrah
so much for that.
completely proved him wrong. Yeah, I rate Michael Holding very highly as a bowler and as an analyst. But what I'm saying is that Kohli and Shastri didn't care about the others' opinion. They genuinely believed that they needed a battery of pacers, and they worked very diligently about it, and the results are there to be seen. And Kohli has a very genuine passion for test matches. In white ball cricket, I think his captaincy is mediocre, but if you ask me, he is arguably the best test captain India has ever had.
Interesting comment was made by someone in the live stream. Kohli has won bilaterals because they have a chance to come back in the series, but when it is do or die, the team, including Kohli, has lost their nerve. It's an interesting observation. I think
Yeah,
bilaterals gives you a time to come back.
because
Yep.
little bit of contradiction to Navneet's comments that even in test matches where it was the do or die in World Test Championship, Kohli did struggle as a captain.
Hmm.
Mm.
The
Yeah, not
thing
won a
the
big
thing
tournament, yes.
Yeah, the thing about Kohli that I love is the intensity he brings in every aspect, including fielding and fitness. I don't think any captain has done ever for Indian cricket that Kohli has. I think John Wright wrote that when he was made the coach, कुछ लोगों की bags तो वो खुद players भी नहीं उठाते थे. They had people to carry bags for them. I mean, it's the funniest thing ever, right? And yeah, and I can't even imagine like Ganguly comes across as the as a very anti-fitness sort of person in his early days. Then he worked on his fitness and everything, but John Wright has some hilarious sort of takes on that. So from there to coming to where everybody is doing this yo-yo test and things like that, or a 37, 38-year-old Ashish Nehra was doing better in yo-yo test than many younger players. It is insane how far we've come, right? But Kohli ka problem ye hai ki his biggest asset is his problem that when he picks someone he backs them regardless of whatever holding or anyone will say, right? But in some
Hmm.
cases his strategy may not work and he still continues to stick with it, and that is why where the problem happens in your World Cups knockout. What differentiates people who can win knockouts is people who can make tough decisions dropping. I personally think Hardik Pandya did not deserve to be in India's starting 15. Forget 11. He did not deserve to be in India's starting 15. He was only picked because of his perceived closeness to certain people and his past exploits. But if you look at him in the IPL, he had struggled here, and half the time
And the
people are like,
shoulder
oh,
injury.
yeah, Hardik Pandya has returned. I love Hardik Pandya as a player. But I absolutely think he should be in all 2020 games, but he was just not match fit. He could not hit the ball. Like, I
Okay,
don't need
not.
to.
But then my
Can
question
I
here
can I add
is,
one comment? Can I
sure,
add
sure,
one
sure,
comment?
sure.
So yeah, I agree with what Adit said. And to give you just one more example, I talked about Kohli not winning big tournaments in 2019 World Cup. Kohli completely messed up. I'm not putting blame entirely on Kohli, but since he's the captain, he has to take the fall. In 20 the India's squad for 2019 World Cup was disastrous. You included you included people like Dinesh Karthik and others, and that's when you had a large pool of very talented youngsters knocking at the doors. And just before the World Cup, Ambati Rayudu was dropped, and Ambati Rayudu was groomed for the 2019 World Cup for a couple of years. I mean, I and people like Rishabh Pant came into the team just one series before the World Cup, and I think Shubman Gill was not even in the squad in 2019 World Cup. So if you look at the 2019 World Cup, there were a lot of players who were past their prime. People like Dinesh Karthik, people like Dinesh Karthik, and there was another guy, Vijay Shankar, who was called 3D player. But what did he do in the World Cup? There were so many there were so many there were so many mistakes
Strange
in
choices.
the World Cup squad in 2019. I mean, and that's when you had a very you had a and you still have a very large pool of talented cricketers, knocking at the doors. So I think this is I completely agree with Adit that sometimes this is Kohli's undoing as well. In Test matches, the bowlers he groomed, the players he bagged have really. They really came good and performed exceptionally, especially the Pacers. That's why we won the series in Australia a couple of times. That's why we almost won a series in England as well, 2-1. We did fine in South Africa as well. But in the ODIs, I think he has mostly backed the wrong players, and sometimes his team selection, his squad selection leaves a lot to be desired.
All right, now let's Adit and Navneet, let's get into the future now. But before we get into the future, I think we have to talk about Ravi Shastri and the role Ravi Shastri has played. I know there are a lot of ridiculous memes on the internet about Ravi Shastri and how he
Hmm.
drinks. First
Hmm.
of all, वो तुम्हारे पैसे से नहीं पीता, अपने पैसे से पीता है. सालो तुमको क्या प्रॉब्लम है अगर रवि शास्त्री शराब पीता है?
Hmm.
Tell me, Adit, first you and then Navneet. What do you think? How was Ravi Shastri the coach?
Apologies, I just realized I was on airport, so you heard me pouring my glass of water very vividly.
Yeah,
So sorry.
people might think you're peeing.
But that was this glass of water. Here is my bottle that I was pouring from. एक तो ये वायरलेस का यही प्रॉब्लम है. These are a little too accurate. So
Well,
apologies for that. But with Ravi Shastri ka, I think he had a pretty good tenure as coach. Uh, I think his highest point was when Kohli wasn't in the dressing room, that is in Australia, where he really had to step up and mentor youngsters. You had a squad of I love Ravi the competitor, right? उसके जैसा अगर आपको रवि द competitor देखना है 2007 में जब इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया गया था and the whole monkey gate situation happened with Harbhajan Simons, you should have seen the Ravi Shastri and Sunil Gavaskar that Indians shot, absolutely loved. They gave it back to the Aussies, and the reason was because the Australian press was absolutely racist in terms of how they were covering the Indians. Okay, I don't want to get into the what was said on the field and what wasn't, because uske liye to inquiry ho chuki hai, aap padh lo. But so Ravi Shastri would give it back to them. Okay, so he was like that. So he was a very Australian in his attitude कि अगर मुझे आएगा तो मैं एक दूंगा सामने. So it was no surprise to me that he knew how to play Australia in Australia and guided the team along with Ajinkya Rahane. So you had the best of both, right? You had the aggression of Shastri, the silent aggression of Shastri, and the calmness of Rahane, who was backing players that led to this. The problem with Kohli, what happened was they were two similar players, was that he was not standing up enough to Kohli is one of the criticism. And that could be true, right? But we never gave that had that criticism for John Wright. I don't think John Wright stood up to Saurav Ganguly, just like Ravi Shastri. I mean, his and
no, but
Ganguly's
John Wright, see, we don't know what happens in the dressing room. Don't you remember that famous incident where John Wright has narrated pushing Sehwag on the wall and saying, "What the hell are you doing?" I think there's a famous incident where he pushed
absolutely.
Sehwag on the
No,
wall.
so that's what I'm
Yep,
saying.
yep,
So
yep.
that's what I'm saying. I think we don't. I'm saying we, just like we give the benefit of doubt to John Wright, we should give the benefit of doubt to Mr. Shastri as well. Where it was, I think people were a little harsher was because with Kumble, you had a very successful team. I think that was the most successful 1 year for India because we won everything against New Zealand, England, Australia home, and by huge margins when he was the coach. And then you had that with Kumble, Kohli got into conflicts. And with Shastri, he did not. And then he ended up dropping a lot of players that people thought should have played in the first 11. Like he said, Ambati Rayudu, you had Ravichandran Ashwin in England this year, many cases. So that is what marred the thing. But overall, I think Shastri's tenure as a coach, I would rate far high, a little higher than Kohli's tenure as Indian captain.
Definitely, man. I love Shastri as a coach. I found it appalling that people keep mocking Ravi Shastri. But Navneet, what did you make of Ravi Shastri's tenure as a coach?
I'll start with an anecdote, Kushal.
Sure.
So when Ravi Shastri was appointed as a coach, or when he was being told that you will be the next coach of India, he put a condition. He said that I'll only accept being the head coach of Indian cricket team if Bharat Arun is appointed the bowling coach of Indian cricket team. And there were many people in the BCCI who were against it. But Kohli put his foot down. Ravi Shastri put his foot down. He said that if Bharat Arun won't be my bowling coach, I won't accept the role of a head coach at all. And then Shastri had his way. Now, why Shastri rated Bharat Arun so highly is, see, Bharat Arun might not be an illustrious name. He didn't have a distinguished international career at all. But Kohli but Ravi Shastri and Bharat Arun go back a long way. And Ravi Shastri knew about the capabilities of Bharat Arun, how he works under the radar, how he stays, how he doesn't hog the limelight and he doesn't attract media attention. He just works silently and diligently in the background, and he has a knack of guiding the pacers. And let me tell you, Shastri and Bharat Arun, I mean, कोहली को अपनी कैप्टनसी, अपनी बैटिंग और दूसरी चीजें भी देखनी होती है. बट भरत अरुण एंड रवि शास्त्री वर्क वेरी क्लोजली विद द पेसर्स. ईशांत शर्मा, इफ यू रिमेंबर, बिफोर शास्त्री वाज अपॉइंटेड द coach, Ishant Sharma's career, Ishant Sharma Ishant seemed washed up. His career was over the hill. But Shastri and Bharat Arun and Bharat Arun sat with him. They told that you're the most experienced guy. We want to build a battery of pacers, and we want you to be the spearhead. We want you to play the role of a mentor and a guide, and we want to build a pace attack around you. Then they sat with Mohammad Shami. Mohammad Shami was going through some personal problems during that time with his wife and all, but Bharat Tarun and Ravi Shastri ensured that he is kept in good humor, that he is mentally and emotionally in good spirit to perform. And I mean, we have already talked about Jasprit Bumrah, that even before his Test debut, he was completely written off as a Test bowler by Michael Holding. But 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 Ravi Shastri and Bharat Arun showed that confidence in him, because Ravi Shastri was highly impressed with what Bumrah had done in the IPL. So Ravi Shastri was pretty. Ravi Shastri, I think, in 2018 made a comment that Jasprit Bumrah is going to be one of the best fast bowlers India has produced. So Ravi Shastri as a coach has really worked hard, and as you rightly said, कि लोग जब उसकी ड्रिंकिंग के बारे में या किसी और जो जो
Yeah,
जो नॉन नॉन क्रिकेटिंग चीजें उनके बारे में बात करते हैं, अरे वो शराब पीता है, इफ ही ड्रिंक्स, इफ ही एंजॉयज हिज लाइफ, व्हाट द हेक. The point is he has done his job with tremendous proficiency and with a lot of
absolutely.
skill. उसने अपना काम इतना अच्छा किया है. And Ravi Shastri is the kind of a man, I completely agree with you, Kushal. Ravi Shastri has always been the kind of a man who believed that work hard and party harder, and there is absolutely
Oh, yeah.
nothing wrong in it. I read in one of his interviews, Ravi Shastri said that in 1980s, when I was a youngster, and this gives you a peek into his mind. Ravi Shastri said that in the early 80s, when I got into the team, so seniors को बहुत ज़्यादा reverence देते थे, which is good, but the players were almost servile. So he said that one day after the match, when I was man of the match, I came into the dressing room with a beer, and everyone was absolutely shocked कि अरे एक तो आप ड्रेसिंग रूम में आके ऐसे बियर पी रहे हो. इट वाज नॉट आई मीन इट वाज नॉट कंसीडर्ड. हालांकि इंग्लैंड और ऑस्ट्रेलिया में तो बहुत कॉमन है दैट आफ्टर द डेज प्ले दे ऑल सिट टुगेदर एंड हैव अ कपल ऑफ बियर्स एंड ऑल.
Absolutely.
But Ravi Shastri walked into the dressing room with a beer, and especially the seniors were shell shocked. But Ravi Shastri said that this is how I was. बाद में मुझे one of the seniors pulled him away and said that, I mean, I mean, this was an insult to the seniors. He said that I bloody want a match for India. Why can't I enjoy myself? What harm does a beer do? So this has always been Ravi Shastri's character and his persona. And don't just go by his outer persona that he likes to enjoy his life. He works bloody hard. He was a very
Yeah,
hardworking cricketer. He squeezed every ounce of his talent. He really performed out of his skin. जितना उसमें talent था उससे उसने कहीं ज़्यादा achieve किया as a cricketer, as a commentator, and as a coach as well. He worked very very hard. ईशान शर्मा के career को revive किया. They kept, I mean, just imagine what Shami was going through. There was so much turmoil and turbulence in his life. The allegations were being hurled at him, and despite all that, शामी का जो बेस्ट फेस करियर का है वो पिछले 3 सालों में रहा. ये सब ऐसा ही नहीं हुआ. इसके पीछे रवि शास्त्री,
absolutely.
भरत अरुण, and these are just two and three example. And the point is, I mean, the fact that Shastri didn't stand up to Kohli, I think Shastri is very smart enough to understand. And Shastri told that after his first press conference, in his first press conference after becoming the coach, Shastri said that I'm not here to teach Virat Kohli or other cricketers how to play cricket. I am there to infuse self-confidence in them. I am there to help them in sorting out their little issues on and off the field, and that is just going to be my role. Shastri is not a fool that वो वहां के कोहली की टेक्निक के साथ फील्ड करेगा, कोहली को बैटिंग करना सिखाएगा, या रोहित शर्मा का स्टांस उसको अनसॉलिसिटेड एडवाइस देगा. And this is exactly what the role of a coach should be. You can't teach these celebrated cricketers how to play cricket. You have to work mentally with them, and just to keep them and just to give them the confidence and support in the background. So it is absolutely foolish to stand up to captains for
but
no rhyme or reason. और
no,
जिसने किया, and
no,
let me just say,
no.
I was reading Shahid Afridi's autobiography. Shahid Afridi said that Waqar Yunus was a very micromanaging coach. और उसके सारे players ने ये बात बोली है. पाकिस्तान के, you talk with all the Pakistan players, I mean, they said in the interviews, why Waqar Yunus as a coach was a disaster, micromanaging coach. He was telling them to change their technique, to उनका complete action change करो without giving them any proper guidance or reasons. So it's actually good that Ravi Shastri didn't stand up to Virat Kohli, and the role of a coach is to provide all the support and inputs to the captain, and let and let the captain be the be the guiding light of the team.
Yeah, and you know what I like about Shastri Adit is that Shastri is the kind of guy, if you push comes to shove, he'll just tell someone to kiss his ass, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Shastri doesn't care. I like that about Shastri. I've always
No,
been.
no, no, no. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I wanted to be him to be in terms of with Virat Kohli as well. Ki there are, if there are some things that are happening completely crazy, is and by the way, I just read the comment. He is partially correct. When you do surround yourselves with sycophants, you cannot get results, because who is going to tell you where you're going wrong?
No, but I
Ex-
think Ravi Shastri would do that to Kohli, right? Ravi Shastri
Yes,
is not the
yes,
kind of
yes.
personality who would not tell Kohli.
I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying I'm saying ki the thing is, if there are certain, would he put his foot down like he would with a Rahane, with Kohli? I don't think so.
Hmm.
I think because Kohli's
I
personality is that. You look at
but
all the controversies that have plagued around Kohli, right? He's always comes out firing in sort of a completely different direction. I'm not saying, and by the way, this is not Kohli who has started the first culture of surrounding himself with favorites. This all started when Mr. Dhoni was the captain. और ये हर एक टीम में होता है, that they are
That
surrounded
is
with,
human nature, Adit.
that
That
is
is
human.
human nature.
Wait, that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. People only outrage about it because we see the camaraderie even more so on Instagram and things like that. So we now know that XYZ is close with ABC, right? But the question about what Navneet said about Shastri, absolutely, that's true. I think people are being unfair because of his sort of, about his personal choices and things like that. We shouldn't be like, ye uska hai. You should talk about his performance as a coach on this. But where I want to do is कि लोग जो ये करते हैं ना कि if some person is not a good cricketer, he's not a good coach, or he's not a good commentator. That has nothing to do with that. I see this all the time. The commentator who's commenting on like someone bowling, right, has like 200 wickets more, 200 wickets less than the guy who's bowling. So why the hell should he criticize them? Same for coaches. That if a coach is not as good of a player as Kohli or something, why should he do that? Because the thing is, when you are the coach, when you are the commentator, you see something from a 360-degree view that somebody is not seeing from the 22-yard role. And that is where a coach comes in and tells them that you do this, right, that you do this. I don't know if Shastri told Kohli that in the IPL you had all teams going with multiple spinners, like two spinners, three spinners on the tracks of UAE. Virat Kohli still went with three fast bowlers in the first two T20s, right? And we got spanked all around the park. Then he switched to having three spinners in the side in the next two games, and it worked out for us, for India, right? So did Ravi Shastri have that conversation with Kohli before the Pakistan match? That, boss, I know you want to be like the Indian avatar of Clive Lloyd and have a fast bowling battery, but in UAE the ball is turning. You cannot just have Bhuvneshwar Kumar bowling cutters at 135 kilometers, 130 kilometers an hour when the ball is not swinging and gets spanked all around the park. I just don't
Okay,
think he
now
had that
now
relationship with Kohli.
let us get into the latter half, which is the future of Indian cricket. First of all, I think the New Zealand tour of India starts on November 17th. So first match is at Jaipur Savai Mansingh Stadium. T20 है फिर November 19th को I think it is in Ranchi, and then Sunday ko it is in Eden Gardens, Kolkata. Then the first test starts from November 25th to 29th, and then the first test is in Green Park, Kanpur, and then the second test, which I'm very excited about, December 3rd से is in Mumbai. मैं तो पक्का
Are you
जाने वाला
going?
हूँ 100%. 100% जाने वाला हूँ मैं. So I am dead sure that I'll be going there. Now let's start with this. Navneet, you first. Now let us talk about the future. Obviously, we have a New Zealand tour to India coming up. We have a new coach, head coach, Coach Rahul Dravid. Now we are all Rahul Dravid fans, and we know the amount of hard work Rahul Dravid has done with the under 19 kids. So we are actually, I think he's the perfect man to replace Ravi Shastri. But on the captaincy front, where do we go with the captaincy now in white ball cricket? ठीक है, रोहित को बना देंगे अभी, मगर वो भी short term ही होगा ना, because Rohit is also a senior. So in your view, Navneet, the future of Indian cricket with Rahul Dravid as a coach, and now Kohli अभी तक तो टेस्ट मैच कैप्टन है. I know white ball cricket का अभी कैप्टन नहीं है. So future of टेस्ट मैच and one day cricket or white ball and red ball cricket, who do you think are the future captains? Coach ka to figure out ho gaya. We can only judge Dravid after a while. We can only say
True.
we are excited to see Rahul Dravid as a coach. That's all we can say
Absolutely.
rationally.
True.
So first you, and then Adit, tu bhi aaja.
Future captains, I think in test matches, it won't be a bad idea to make Rishabh Pant the captain. I think, I mean, I'm talking about 5 years down the line, because I think at least in red ball cricket, unless 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 something untoward happens, Kohli is going to be the captain in test matches at least for the next 3-4 years. So I think I see Rishabh Pant as a future captain in test matches. In ODIs as well, I think, you know, in T20s and ODIs, I can think of Shreyas Iyer. But yeah, I mean, if I have to pick one, if I have to put my money on one person, it'll be Rishabh Pant as a future captain in all the three formats. Shreyas Iyer might, Shreyas Iyer at some point might become the, if he retains his form, that is, in the ODIs and T20s.
All right.
Um, so there are two things, right? First thing is like the immediate future. I think we have the World T20 happening again in 1 year. So for T20s and one days, I think we should have Rohit Sharma as the captain till the World Cup
Hmm.
2023 and the
I
T20 World
agree.
Cup.
I agree with
Uh,
you.
yeah, he's done enough to merit 2 years as captain and see how he does. And I don't think we should look at the future when it comes to ODI cricket till the next World Cup is over. Uske baad you can have the new captain, whoever it is, take over after 2023. Second, on test matches, I think Kohli is fine as a test match captain for now till the next World Test Championship happens. But it will all depend on his arrangement with Rahul Dravid. I have a feeling that if there is some sort of a conflict, then I think this time the BCCI would err on the coach's side and would actually tell Kohli to step down. And if Kohli
I
does, so why is that?
No, no, but I hope that happens, because
Yeah,
I mean, what happened with Anil Kumble was ridiculous.
was ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. A captain cannot just determine who the just take any club in the world, any team in the world. How many times have you seen the national captain or the star player determine who the coach or the manager of the club is? No, you find a way to work together, and that's what actually makes me a little very skeptical of Kohli. Does he not like working with people he doesn't get along with? Right. So that is one thing. And so I think, but he's right about Rishabh Pant, that Rishabh Pant could be groomed as a captain or stuff. But wicket keeping captains, especially in test match cricket, it's a very tough job, because you are very, like, you are intense as a wicket keeper all the time, and then also being captain. We saw what that did to Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He announced his retirement from test captaincy in the middle of a series. So I just don't
Hmm.
see that happening. And he was not a captain for more than 6 years, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was 6 years. उससे ज़्यादा तो नहीं था, right? धोनी captain test match में.
For 6 years,
I
he was the captain of Test
What
matches.
do you think of why do we have to have the same captain? What do you think of Bumrah as a test match captain and one day or a T20 captain Rishabh Pant? Just मैं तुम दोनों का opinion जानना चाहता था.
यार बुमराह का मुझे ये लगता है, सी बुमराह इज अ ग्रेट एसेट फॉर अस, और बुमराह का मुझे ये लगता है कि आई मीन स्पेशली एज ही विल एज नाउ, बुमराह का जो वर्कलोड है वो काफी अच्छे से मैनेज करना होगा. आई एम नॉट इन फेवर कि बुमराह को आप लेट्स से कोई लोअर रेटेड टीम है, एट प्रेजेंट अगर वेस्ट इंडीज इंडिया आ रही है, तो आई एम नॉट इन फेवर कि वहां पे आपको बुमराह को खिलाना चाहिए. तो मुझे
Yeah.
लगता है, और जिस तरह से और जिस तरह से अभी शास्त्री और कोहली ने जिस तरह से वर्कलोड मैनेजमेंट रखा है पेसर्स का, तो और एक कैप्टन को टीम में रेगुलर होना चाहिए. बुमराह रेगुलर हो सकता है, but I think looking at the long term prospect, ideally I won't like Bumrah to be the captain. Bumrah is just too good an asset, and Bumrah is going to be Bumrah is going to be the most crucial player if we have to continue winning the test series overseas. So I first of all I won't like to put the burden on Bumrah, और Bumrah captain बन गया, उसको हर टेस्ट मैच खेलना होगा, which I just don't want him to play.
I
I
have a
want
I
to.
have a I have a very left field choice on this. If Kohli does not want to be captain till the next World Test championship, you should have Ashwin as the test captain.
Okay, so this is a good suggestion. I like this suggestion. Actually, Navneet, मेरी भी यही thought थी. KL Rahul T20 और ODI का अच्छा future का captain हो सकता है. I actually agree with
Yeah,
Tanmay here.
but he should no. But I think the BCCI also agrees with you because he's the deputy to Rohit Sharma in the next series.
बीसीसीआई की सेटिंग अच्छी हो रही है. अच्छा,
हाँ,
this is an interesting comment. Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma or any other person will not make a difference till the system is changed. You need to be result oriented and the players' salaries should depend on that and nothing else. IPL is an example. I don't agree with this
no.
necessarily.
And actually, players'
I don't
salaries do
agree with
depend.
this.
No. Players' salaries do depend on that. Their central
True.
contracts get an appraisal
Yeah.
up or down. But you cannot say कि अब मैं तुम्हें पैसे नहीं दूंगा if you
हाँ,
get out of
I
zero.
think that is
again.
not fair. I think that is not fair.
Because-
Player
because
कितना
हम-
stress में खेलेगा यार.
नहीं, and we've all worked, we've all been on jobs. Agar if we get like harangued like that on one small mistake we make, then we are always operating in fear and we are going to screw up on the bigger projects.
Then we are like those Pakistani fans and what they are doing to Hassan Ali all the time.
ये पिज्जे खा रहे, बर्गर खा रहे, वही होगा.
We don't want to be that यार. We don't want. No, but एक interesting see ये तो कमेंट मस्ती में किसी ने मारा है, आकाश चोपड़ा की कमेंट्री की वजह से हार गए. कई लोगों को लगता है मेरे ट्विटर पे ट्वीट करने से लोग हार रहे हैं. तो ये हाल है हमारे क्रिकेट फैंस का.
Okay, no, guys, can we spend 5 minutes talking about how abysmal the cricket commentary was this time?
नहीं तो ये सुन. I want to take this. This is a very good question, both of you, because this is related to what we do. So channels like Sports Talk like to create controversies just for views. I don't know what Sports Talk is. I don't watch
No,
it,
not
so
Sports
please don't
Talk.
judge
This
me.
is Sports Stuck. If I'm not mistaken, he's
Stuck.
talking about
Aaj Tak
Sports Show.
channel.
आज तक अच्छा. So what do you think about Indian cricket YouTube channels? I'll be very honest. मैं cricket में है ना, I only used to watch Caught Behind till वो नुमान और राशिद लतीफ आते थे. And but I would watch all Pakistani YouTube channels because वो एक दूसरे के साथ कुत्ते बिल्ली के जैसे झगड़े करते रहते हैं. YouTube में इतना entertaining है Pakistani YouTube. If you are bored in life, just go and see every Pakistani cricketer's YouTube. वो लोग कुत्ते बिल्ली के जैसे झगड़ा करते हैं एक दूसरे से. और उसकी लेटेस्ट एग्जांपल है जो डॉक्टर नुमान नियाज ने शोएब अख्तर को बीच शो में उठ के चले.
आप निकल जाइए, please.
That was hilarious. But on a serious note, do you like, I'll be very honest, in terms of the content landscape, pure entertainment, good decent analysis overall in English language, I think is the Great Cricketer. They are the best cricket podcast that I never miss by a country mile. Like, I think they are so good that nobody is as good. Now, yes, I get annoyed when the Great Cricketer, see, it's okay, my politics is different, so I get annoyed when the TGC goes left, and that's my personal choice, but I will never stop listening to them because those two boys are hilarious. So that, in my view, in terms of Hindi content landscape in cricket, I'll be very honest, I don't watch any Indian. I only watch Pakistanis for pure unadulterated entertainment. Especially, I just want to see Shoaib Akhtar's face after they lost the semi-final, and his videos made no sense, and that was so wonderful.
No, और हिंदी में पता है प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है कि exactly they make no sense. मैं क्रिकबस देखता हूँ काफी when they have certain analysts. Harsha is good, Joy Bhattacharya is good, Michael Vaughan also. People love to hate on him, but he has some very pointed statements and stuff.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Very good. One of my favorite commentators actually. And Lisa Stalliker, Sean Pollock, they're all good. But problem ये होता है कि क्रिकबस में आप हिंदी में जाओ ना, तो गौरव कपूर को लगता है मैं स्टैंड अप कॉमेडी में आ गया हूँ, right? So he starts doing all sorts of this bizarre things, and I couldn't listen to that guy for 15 minutes, and he does the good.
Gaurav Kapoor, and he can be funny. I think his podcast, that 22
Breakfast with Champions,
is brilliant.
Or
no,
22
his
Yarns
podcast,
is
22
Yarns,
brilliant.
Fantastic.
But Gaurav's
fantastic.
problem, see, I'll tell you, Gaurav tries to do stand-up comedy. Nahi, Gaurav is a pun maker. He makes puns. And sometimes the puns land and sometimes they don't. But like the Great Cricketer guys, I think they write their shit down. That's why they're better.
No, not just that. I think Gaurav naturally communicates better in English than Hindi. And he struggles at Hindi. So, पर ये लोग को they all have to be bilingual, right? So the shows, so crickbuzz में ये होता है. Crick info की content ठीक ठाक है, उतनी अच्छी नहीं है. But the reason I was talking about commentary is the standards of cricket commentary are so abysmal now. Like you have about 10 or 15 good commentators, but there are like, why the heck are we having ex-cricketers as commentators? Like they just because they stopped playing cricket. I did not think Dale Steyn did that good of a job. Bazid Khan, yaar, Pakistan has better commentators. Even Wasim Akram is better. I don't know what Bazid, kaun si language mein baat kar raha tha wo, right? He was just not good. He was just not good. And this is not a commentary on what he was talking in English and stuff like that. He was just on his own tangent. And then they gave Bazid Khan and Dale Steyn the last 5 overs to talk on some game. And they were just absolutely boring in that. You had Ian Bishop, Mark Nicholas, Harsha Bhogle, Michael Atherton, Nasir Hussain. Now, what is happening is England probably has the better commentators than the rest of the world put together. Right now, if you make a list of the top 20 commentators, cricket commentators, you'll have Nasir Hussain, Isha Guha, Michael Atherton, and Mark Nicholas comfortably fitting in all 4 of them. And people don't because they're like हमें England के सारे commentators को pack नहीं किया. I understand that, but you have to have the best commentators on show, and you cannot have just like anyone, right? And for Sri Lanka, like I think Kumar Sangakkara is a phenomenal commentator, yet these guys keep signing up with Russell Arnold. जिसको ये I'm like, same for Bangladesh. Athar Ali Khan has been commentating for Bangladesh for like abysmally. I'm like, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मैं कोई associate country में जाके बैठ जाऊं और उनका commentator बन जाऊं. Because even if you are abysmal, people keep picking you up for those matches.
भाई पहचान नाम की भी कोई चीज होती है और सेटिंग नाम की चीज होती है. तू देसी होने के बाद ऐसी बातें क्यों करता है?
हाँ वही तो. So नहीं Kushal, I think we should become commentators for Afghanistan. Because उनकी टीम
भाई तो तेरे को ये नहीं मालूम नुमान नियाज का पीटीवी स्पोर्ट्स में एक छत्र राज क्यों है? उसके भी तो रीजन है ना. फैमिली चेक कर, बैकग्राउंड चेक कर.
हाँ वही तो. दैट इज आल्सो ट्रू. नहीं मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ बिकॉज अफगानिस्तान की टीम तो वैसे भी दिल्ली में बेस्ड है, तो हम लोग वी कैन बी इंडियन कमेंटेटर्स को. बट डिडंट यू गाइस थिंक द कमेंट्री दिस टाइम जस्ट वाजंट एज गुड एज यू एक्सपेक्टेड टू बी?
पैथेटिक.
मुझे I was bored. Like I was
watching. Most of the matches I watched after muting the TV.
और मैंने हिंदी में नहीं देखी commentary. And I love Sunil Gavaskar, but I think someone needs to tell him to retire now. Like really, I love Sunil Gavaskar. I think it's a phenomenal storyteller, phenomenal podcaster. उनको बोलो कि आप 3-4 घंटे के podcast करो, tell stories, because now he's gotten into this Uncle G syndrome when he comes on TV and starts doing West Indian accents for no rhyme or reason in IPL and stuff. And I'm like, it just looks flat out embarrassing.
Boss, best है Virender Sehwag. He never speaks about the match. That is the best. वीरेंद्र सहवाग टीवी पे आया, मुझे समझ नहीं हो रहा मैच में क्या हो रहा है, मगर मैं सहवाग को सुन रहा हूँ मैच को छोड़ के. दैट इज द बेस्ट पार्ट. अरे बाबा, हरभजन सिंह को कमेंट्री में लाने का किसने सोचा? ये मतलब कुछ तो हमारे ऊपर गया. मैंने कुशल
मैंने यही कुशल, आई डोंट नो इफ आई टोल्ड इट ऑन दिस चैनल और मैंने खुद में पॉडकास्ट कर रहा था तब मैं बात कर रहा था. हरभजन सिंह, एक्चुअली पीपल इन इंडिया हैव नॉट बीन ट्रीटेड टू द मैग्निफिसेंस ऑफ हरभजन सिंह ऑन स्काई स्पोर्ट्स. When India came to England in 2018, हरभजन सिंह को Sky Sports 5 टेस्ट के लिए साइन अप किया था. 5 टेस्ट. He was the only Indian voice, and Sky Sports में there is a person called the third man. So वो क्या होता है कि 2 commentators होते हैं. The third man has to chime in between drink breaks and over breaks with analysis. हरभजन भूल जाता था कि मैं analyst हूँ, right? तो Nasir Hussain and Shane Warne had to bring him on as the third man, और उसमें वो लाइव कमेंट्री शुरू कर देता था. It was just embarrassing. I'm like, इसको किसी ने असाइनमेंट नहीं दिया या I don't know what. And but Sky Sports में भी दूसरा प्रॉब्लम है, right? डैरन सैमी का मतलब
डैरन सैमी का मैंने कमेंट्री सुना थोड़ा. मेरे को उसका एक्सेंट, सी एनी वेस्ट इंडियन आई लाइक बिकॉज उनका एक्सेंट इतना फनी होता है ना. एक्सेंट सुन के ही बहुत मजा आता है उनको.
हाँ बट एनालिसिस कुछ नहीं था उसमें. When I listen to
यार, वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ. See, when Ravi Shastri, Ian Chappell, Sunil Gavaskar, these people used to sit and talk, analysis का level एक अलग पे होता था. And even post match shows were brilliant. Look, honestly, लोगों को मांजरेकर को गाली देने की बहुत आदत है, and I don't like him as a commentator. But Manjrekar in the post and pre-match shows, I actually enjoy him. When Manjrekar comes, he's actually quite entertaining. And yes, Crickbuzz में Crickbuzz हो या ESPN Cricinfo में जो हर्षा करता है with Michael Vaughan sometimes and with someone else,
brilliant. Sean Pollock, also good. Brilliant. Sean Pollock was in the audience for the T20 World Cup final. I was like, why did you have Dale Steyn and not Sean Pollock as the commentator? for
यार सबको नया नया चेहरा चाहिए, ये लोगों को नया चेहरा भी होता होगा, वो सब होएगा.
like
But
New Zealand में I like Simon Dewell, but Ian Smith missing. Can
Simon is a
anyone
very good
call?
commentator.
No, but can anyone call the moment better than what Ian Smith did in the 2019 World Cup final? I mean,
No.
he was brilliant.
Let's
So
just say Ian Smith reminds me of that Australian commentator. Uh, what's his name? Yeah, it's all happening on the Sydney cricket ground.
oh, Bill Lawry.
Bill Lawry.
Bill Lawry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bill
Bill
Lawry.
Lawry.
Yeah.
I think the kind of energy
So
and exuberance which he exuded, Ian Smith calls the moments pretty much like that. Very
and
exuberantly.
one thing I'll end the commentary discussion with one thing. In the 1996 World Cup, this
दोनों
was the
आंसर
team.
करो, मैं भी करूंगा. दोनों आंसर करो. ये फेवरेट
Favorite
कमेंटेटर
commentator.
पहले तेरे
Favorite
बोल.
commentator. I'll give you three: Nasser Hussain, Harsha Bhogle, and if I probably between Isha Goa and Mark Nicholas.
Is this contemporary or all time? मैं बोलता हूँ contemporary भी बोल और all time भी
Okay,
बोल.
all time has to be Richie. Richie Beno.
Yeah, nobody beats him. For me, it's
Nobody
always Richie
beats him.
Beno.
Richie Beno is what Lata Mangeshkar is to playback singing. Freaking changed the rules of broadcasting
Absolutely,
and
bro.
commentary.
Absolutely.
Tony Cozier in the pre 2000 West Indies, I'm talking, not the
Oh,
post
yes.
2000 when he was at his prime. And the third one would be probably Jonathan Agnew on radio.
Navneet, you?
Okay. All time Richie Beno, Bill Lawry, Ian Chappell.
Yeah.
Contemporaries में, I mean, among the current ones, Harsha Bhogle, Nasir Hussain. I mean, and the third name I'm going to say, he doesn't do commentary that often, but I genuinely like listening to his commentary. He's not high on analysis, but he brings that candor, which is, I mean, which which I find is sorely missing in most commentators. The third one is Kevin Peterson. I've heard him doing commentary in Big Bash sometimes. I think in 2012 World T20, I really liked his commentary. Kevin Peterson.
Okay,
He
I'll
doesn't
tell
do
you
much, but I really like it.
contemporary. I'll tell you my all-time would be Richie Beno. Obviously, Richie Beno is the GOAT in my view. Richie Beno is number one. I like Sunil Gavaskar in commentary and
Yes.
Ian Chappell.
I
Ian
love
Chappell. These are
I
my
love
three. These are my three
But
goats.
sorry, one qualification. Pre 2010 Gavaskar was brilliant. I mean, if I would like to forget the Gavaskar I've heard in the past 1-2 years, but pre was outstanding. Gavaskar was brilliant.
And I'll add a fourth because I have to add him. I like Bumble, David
Oh
Lloyd.
yeah,
I
and there
think
is another.
Bumble, when he is on the mic, when the match is on in England, I think that's the best time. If David Lloyd is on, I am definitely watching TV because David Lloyd is hilarious.
So
He's
there
hilarious.
is another fourth guy I would want to add, Tony Gregg, who was brilliant as well. I mean, he
Oh
brought the
yes.
excitement. But two moments, Kushal, I want to talk about, because you said Bumble. This time India was in England, and there was a ball where Stuart Broad was out, and Stuart Broad was looking to review the decision, right? So David Lloyd is on commentary. He's like, "Oh, that is so plumb that he's out. I think the batsman gave himself out before the umpire started to raise his finger." I mean, he was such a beautiful and come to Richie. The India and Zimbabwe were playing a match in 2003. मैं post करूँगा ये video. And there was a channel 9 में थी, and Sehwag was going ballistic, right? So Sean Irvine bowls this lollipop long hop, and Sehwag hits it about 35 rows back for a six, right? So any commentator in the world, he'd be like, he's lofted it in the air and bangs it for six. Richie just calmly is on the commentary box. He's like, well, that was a mistake, Sean. Now go back over and think through what you did wrong. It was so brilliant, because why do you need to describe when the shot itself is so self-explanatory? And you just see Ian Chappell was laughing next to him and stuff like that. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. So a few people have asked Ravi Shastri, the commentator, he was decent, trace of bullet or whatever. Then somebody has reminded us of don't forget Danny Morrison. You know what? I don't mind Danny, but sometimes I think he overdoes the enthusiasm bit, but it's okay. I actually somebody says he likes listening to Anjum Chopra. I don't know. I've not heard a lot of Anjum Chopra, the commentator. But in contemporary commentary, I actually like Nasir Hussain a lot.
Hmm.
Isha Gua. I actually like Isha Gua
That's
a
what
lot.
exactly.
I enjoy the commentary, and most people will disagree with me, of Shane Warne, because again, Shane Warne, sometimes gives it to the players. You need someone to give it back. Now I know Shane Warne is not popular amongst everyone, but I like Shane Warne. Okay, one last question, and then we will maybe wrap it up. Do you think we are too dependent on Jasprit Bumrah in white ball cricket? Teams just play him out and then thrash everyone else? I don't think so. In my opinion, I think we have a decent white ball side. I think we are not Bumrah centric in that sense. We have decent players. We just don't pick them. Is
Yeah.
my view. All right, so guys, अच्छा ऐसा करते हैं. We'll wrap today's discussion up because it's already an hour and 20 minutes. But I want to make one more announcement that now, when it comes to the cricket podcast, we'll be far more regular. Because the cricket season has pretty much kicked in now. India's tour of New Zealand is happening. So we'll definitely cover, we'll wrap up the India tour of New Zealand. And the thing that I'm looking forward to the most is the Ashes, which starts from 8th December. Let me check.
And
The
don't
Ashes
forget,
starts from
Kushal, India plays South Africa at the same time. So we have some amazing test
yeah,
match
so we
cricket.
have shitloads. So if needed, we
Yep.
will come back on the podcast weekly or bi-weekly, whatever is needed, we'll do that. And also we're going to start doing a series of discussions. We've been having an offline discussion, so I thought I'll make an announcement. We'll pick issues of cricket and we'll also have discussions around that. I want to talk about not Black Lives Matter, but I want to seriously take up this issue of racism in cricket. uh, Forget this kneeling down, but a lot of stuff is happening right now in the Yorkshire Cricket Club. I don't know how many of you are
Yep.
following it, but
Yep.
shit's going down. Michael Vaughan has been accused. A lot of things are going down. So, and also there is a huge commission that was just conducted in South Africa too. So we are all three of us are actually doing our research. So we're going to be doing a dedicated podcast on that also. We'll not just make it about racism. We'll talk about discrimination in general in cricket, and maybe we'll even talk about caste. I don't mind actually. I did a detailed discussion on wokeism in sports. I'm as anti woke as it gets. I mean, so you will not see me that, but social justice is not about wokeism, and I think racism is a problem, and we should talk about it. We should not hide away from it. So
Mhm.
guys, we will wrap up today's discussion. Hopefully India beats New Zealand, and I mean, fingers crossed, because first test, I don't care about the T20s honestly, but I care about the test matches, and I know फर्स्ट टेस्ट में काफी प्लेयर्स रेस्टेड हैं. आई थिंक सेकंड टेस्ट में आने वाले हैं ना, ये कोहली वोली सब वापस आएंगे मुंबई टेस्ट के लिए. तो अच्छा, कम से कम मैं जब मैच देखने जाऊंगा तो सारी टीम होगी, तो मेरे पैसे वसूल हो रहे हैं, उसकी सबसे पहली खुशी मुझे ये है. सेल्फिश हूं मैं, बट so I guess we'll wrap up today's discussion. So Navneet, Adit, as always, pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure. Let the Rahul Dravid era in Indian cricket begin on a great note.
Exactly. All right, guys, time to wrap today's discussion up. Please support the podcast by subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment. Please support the podcast by becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon, or buy the merch on the website directly at kushalmehra.com or on Kadak Merch, or send your donations through UPI. I'll see you in, I don't know, a couple of days with either a monologue or another podcast. Until then, take care.